Hello everyone, in this video, we will be seeing part 9 of What If Naruto Was the Direct Descendant of Sparda. So be sure to stick around until the end. Let's get started. Hyuga Hinata panted hard in the backyard of Naruto's home with Haku standing before her. Her breath was heavy as well. Hinata was working hard for the past 2 days with her father training her and Haku being her sparring partner later on. The girls found that in order to be a true mate for Naruto, they would need to work hard through this month and gain as much strength as they could. They were also surprised that they both had sex with the white-haired boy, which they made them go into a conversation about that as well. However, what was more surprising was when they saw the marks on their necks. To say that they were surprised was an understatement, but to whatever the purpose of them was unknown to them both. Haku, though, was surprised by the mark as she somehow felt stronger. She felt as strong as she did whenever she was under a full moon. Her powers were magnified, and her ice powers were stronger as well. Hinata felt stronger as well, for when she activated her Byakugan her vision was stronger, and was able to see not only all the chakra points within Haku's body, but also the 8 gates as well as the access chakra around her body. In addition to this, she felt more agile and faster than normal. Haku felt more ferocity in her attacks, and was even able to pull water molecules in the air. Whatever was going on with the two girls, it was making them stronger. With Naruto and company walked onto the shore of the Devil's Island, with Naruto getting a funny feeling about the area. On the boat ride here, it was filled with silence and a calm setting around them. They knew what the stakes of the mission as well as the dangers entitled them, but they were not afraid. They were going to stick this out until the end and rescue the princess. Naruto laughed to himself as this situation reminded him of a movie he saw as a kid called Sleeping Beauty. That movie held the same type of situation that they were in, except the knight was not a descendant of a half-devil, or holds one of the strongest demons within his body. The entire island was surrounded by a thick mist that obscured their line of sight, though Naruto had enhanced sight by Kyuubi and Lee from his Masterkage. The island was a perfect spot for a horror, if one were to be made. The sparse trees just beyond the gravelly shore were overhung with black moss and other such lichens on their drooping leaves and grayish bark. The brown grass was mottled with green and often simply patches of dirt. Gray, black, and purplish clouds hung above the island, as if rain was going to come, but it never will. "Everyone stay on your toes, I got a feeling we're not alone," Anko said as she pulled out a kunai with Tenten opening a scroll and summoning a katana to her hand. Naruto brought out Yamato to his hand before tossing Yamato to Lee, who grabbed it and pulled the blade out of its sheath. Naruto then bit his thumb and swiped the blood on his left wrist and brought out Red Queen to his hand, grasped the handle of the sword and stood still with his hand on the handle. He then opened his right hand and brought out Kyuubi to his hand. They remained like this for a moment, until a distant whish-whish-whish sound came to the boy's ears that told him that shurikens were thrown, and was now heading towards them. Naruto then turned around and with quick hands sliced the flying projectiles in half. "Everybody split up," Naruto said as he placed Kyuubi on his back, and revved up Red Queen till it glowed red before he ran into the mist. "Time to have some fun," Lee said as he also hopped into the mist along with Tenten and Anko not too far behind. 10 minutes later. After 10 minutes of wiping the blood off their weapons, they once more continued on their journey to find the princess. Naruto once more felt that feeling again. The feeling of a demonic presence, as well as demonic energy all over this place. Kinda like the same type of demonic presence he felt back at the Kazama estate, and the swamp, back in his previous missions. "Hey Kyuubi, you don't think that Kazama Sotachi is somehow connected with the demons at the Kazama estates?" he asked, with Kyuubi answering. "It's a possibility, although I never heard of a clan nor a power that allows you to control demons," he said, with Nevin speaking this time. "Well, the Kazama clan founder was said to be able to do just that. When I was in that clan house along with the others, it was due to the Kazama clan founder Kazama Sotachi bringing us with him. After a while the clan just vanished in thin air, and we were stuck there until Naruto-sama came along and made us his devil arms," Nevin said, with Naruto stroking his chin. "Could it be possible that a 5th devil power exists? I know I carry 3 and Lee carries 1, but could it be possibly that another is out there?" Naruto thought to himself, with Kyuubi responding. "Kid, always remember that nothing in this world is impossible. Remember I was controlled by Uchiha Madara, who everyone has thought was dead for years. If he can do that, then it's not impossible for another devil power to exist," he said, with Naruto sighing before glaring to the side. Somebody was watching them, and he had a sneaky suspicion that this person was staring directly at him. Later on that day, the group of 4 shinobi managed to make it towards the cliff area in the island without facing any opposition, which confused them all greatly. The Kurogane family was supposed to be a large number group, yet for some reason they barely caught a quarter of that group. Whatever was going on here, it was clear that it did not involve the Kurogane family. They were then thrown for a loop, when they saw that they arrived to the top of the cliff, and saw something that helped them get why this place was called the Devil's Island. On the face of a cliff, was a black castle that was not really what caught their attention. It was what was behind the castle, that made them all look in awe and surprise. On the back of the castle was a cliff that held a face that resembled a devil's face perfectly, with the horns, the teeth, and its long beard, which conveniently resembled a waterfall. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the structure, and felt as if it was calling to him, like the cliff face was calling out for him to enter and see what it held. "I guess I just learned why they call it the Devil's Island," Tenten said, shuddering at the fact that a place like this could even exist. "Come on, let's get this over with now and get the hell out of here. This place is giving me the creeps," said Anko as she slinked across the ground they were on along with the others, and stayed closely behind her. Naruto once more used his enhanced sight, and was able to see that the castle was unguarded, which confused him. Was Mikira telling the truth, when she said that the Kurogane family kidnapped her sister? Well, that question would remain unanswered, as once they made it they found that no ninja were around to fight, no traps were set, nothing. Naruto just kept getting this feeling of someone watching them, while Anko began to contemplate on the matter at hand. Normally when a kidnapper sets up a ransom, the place he's hiding the prisoner would be heavily guarded with both guards and traps. The signs of a coward once the light were shined upon them. But this held no ninja, besides the one they fought earlier. No traps were set up for them to trip, so they could protect their cargo. Nothing. This must mean that the leader is either very arrogant on his skills, or he is one of the most powerful ninjas in the elemental nations, she thought as the group entered the halls of the castle and once more saw that no traps were set, nor were there any ninjas around the area. Something was definitely wrong about this whole thing, and they were sure it. Then relief came when they saw two guards standing in front of a tall steel door, each holding a katana in hand. Upon close examination, Naruto could also see that the door was surrounded by electricity seal, which when touched will expel massive amounts of voltage into the body and would give you an electrical execution. Naruto knew he could take care of the guards, since he didn't feel wrong with the scenario at all. The boy then grasped his guns Angel and Reaper, then pulled the trigger while criss-crossing his arms. The sound of thunderclaps caught everyone's attention except the guards, as the bullets flew fast enough to nail them in between their skulls and push them into the wall behind them and knock them out. Tenten and Lee walked over to check and saw that the men were indeed unconscious. They then saw Naruto go to work on the seal with Anko surveying the area for any additional enemies to take out. After a few more minutes, the seal was disarmed, and they were now able to enter the room. When they entered the room they saw the girl on top of the bed within the room but was sound asleep. Naruto felt as if he was right when he said that this was like Sleeping Beauty. But right now wasn't the time to think on it. He ran over to the girl's neck area and checked her pulse, which made him sigh in relief when he saw that she was still breathing. "She's still alive. She's been given a 4-sleep seal, so that way she wouldn't be able to put up a fight when they kidnapped her," he said as he picked the girl up and began to walk out of the room. "It's strange, I assumed that she would be dead and that this was a trap," Tenten said with Lee nodding. "I thought that the kidnappers gave the girl the wrong address and sent us on a wild goose chase," Lee said with both Tenten and Anko nodding their heads. "Or maybe they left the girl here, and assumed we would submit the money they asked for," Anko said, which actually is a joke in the criminal world. "No, that can't be right. If that were true, then there would be some type of defensive measure given in this matter. I don't get it to just leave an entire area unguarded with no sets of traps made or any enemies to protect the area. Plus the girl was even alive and now we have the girl with us without any enemies jumping out to get her or stop us. Something is wrong," Naruto said before his words were confirmed by a low rumbled chuckle that echoed throughout the castle. "Right you are, my boy. I'm afraid that it's time to show you the truth," the voice said before the sound of thunder was heard in the area. Naruto's danger sense went off, before he threw the girl at his teammates, which caught the group off guard as they caught the girl. Before they could question what just happened, Naruto had his right arm aimed at the group and his left arm aimed at the ground. With a quick yell of serenity, the group was blasted out of the hallway and towards the room they just left with the girl, while Naruto himself flew the opposite direction. Not a single second after Naruto's quick thinking came in handy, as a huge bolt of lightning struck the area they once were and acted as a blade. Anko, Tenten, and Lee got up from the room they were and saw Naruto get up from his position and looked ahead to see that they were okay. The boy was about to head over to them until a rumble was felt all over the area. Anko, Lee, and Tenten then saw with wide eyes as half of the castle they were in split along with the cliff that held it. Naruto got up to his feet and ran over to the area where the split was, with Lee running over to help him out. Naruto ran up the edge of the castle that was spilt and jumped towards Lee, who had his arm extended to catch him. But before that could happen, a bolt of lightning hit the white-haired boy's left shoulder and knocked him back. The boy then went on a nosedive towards the ground below, while everyone screamed his name. Another lightning bolt hit the remaining half of the castle, which alerted the others that there was still danger in the area. They would grieve later. Lee grabbed the sleeping princess and jumped out of the window with Anko and Tenten not far behind the boy. Once they got out, another huge bolt of lightning flew down from the sky and consumed the remaining portion of the castle. The three ninja looked on in shock before the dark laugh of the same voice was heard once more. "Now then, let's get this party started," said a man as he came into view of the three ninjas. They saw a man with light brown hair and brown eyes walk in front of them. He was wearing a purple vest, with a shirt made of bandages underneath it and purple pants. Around his forearms were bandages tied around them like bracers, while his hands held the important measure. In his hands were twin pike swords with small blades on them. Sure, they didn't look like much, but when infused with lightning chakra, they would become a deadly weapon. "I am Kurosaki Raiga, and I shall be your killers," he said as his body was soon surrounded by lightning. With Naruto. The white-haired boy groaned loudly as the searing pain in his left shoulder echoed through his body. For some reason when he was hit by that lightning bolt it made him feel weaker. As he got up to his feet, trying to ease the pain, Kyubi spoke. "Kit, are you okay?" he said with Naruto groaning in his head before he got up. "Yeah, I'm fine, just a lot of pain in my left shoulder. What's going on?" Naruto asked as he was beginning to see what was going on. "I don't know, but for some reason when you were hit by a bolt of lightning and that was a direct attack. You weren't hit by an accidental shot, someone intended for you to be hit by it," Kyubi said with Naruto getting up to his feet and rubbed the injury on his arm. As he got up he looked around and saw that he was in a coliseum-like area, but the question was how he got here and what he was doing here. "What's going on? How did I get here?" Naruto asked before a new voice spoke out. "I believe I can answer that one, half-breed," said the voice, while shadows began to build before the boy until a hooded figure rose from the shadows. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the man while seeing him pull out a weapon that resembled a purple staff with a black blade on top. "This place is my home, the area that I've lived in for so many years until the time came for me to put my plan into action," he said before twirling the staff in his hand and slamming the bunt end on the ground. "Who the hell are you, and just what the hell is going on here?" he said with the hooded man laughing behind his cloak. "Normally I would have only allowed you to ask me 3 questions to answer, but seeing as how this is our first meeting, I'll answer then without counting those 2. We are within the battle arena of the Devil's Island, the area in which I hid myself and survived in for the past 20 years until today. I brought you here to test your power and see if you are a true blood," the man said with Naruto looking confused. "True blood? For what?" he asked with the man held up his weapon with his chakra exploding all around him. "If you're a true blood in your half of the clan. As for me, I am the legendary devil of the Hidden Mist and the founder of the Kazama clan, Kazama Sotachi, the second half of your clan," the figure said while removing the hood from his head to reveal metallic face mask. He had long white hair that was spiky on top of his head with the rest tied in a ponytail. His clothing consisted of a black material that seemed to be alive with pieces of armor over the ends. The armor consisted of a set of silver gauntlets and greaves that glowed an eerie purple with a silver vest of the same design. Over the vest was a black cloak that also seemed to be alive as it was moving without the wind, but that was not the shocking part of this man. It was his eyes. They same eyes of the Mashingan that Lee carries. So many questions went through his head at once, but then he remembered the man mentioning something about a second half of the clan. "What do you mean by second half?" Naruto asked, only for the man to point his weapon at Naruto, with his smirk being dark. "Now's not the time for the questions, for you must now prove yourself to be worthy of the answers you wish to ask of me," he said before twirling the bladed staff before he slammed the bunt end on the ground and held the weapon like a walking stick, thus allowing the boy to get a good look at the weapon. The weapon was a shiny purple staff that looked to have been polished for hours at a time. The blade was a single-edged style that was white with 3 spines on the back going upward, along with a purple jewel on the right side of the weapon that glowed red with a silt in the center with a purple glow overtaking the blade. "It's a weapon that is designed to slash and cut, but that's not all it can do. I sense that it has an extra power to it," Naruto thought as he summoned to his hand Yamato. He held the Okatana sword in his hand in a tight grip, before charging at the man with both hands on the handle, and extended the weapon at the other man's body. Sotachi simply extended his staff and blocked the sword slash, which made Naruto think he could rebound off and continue to attack, until staff began to glow, and sent a blast of lightning at the boy. Naruto gasped at the shock before he jumped back to allow his body to heal. Sotachi, however, smirked at the boy before he spoke. "I'm afraid you'll need to fight much harder than that if you want to get your answers," Sotachi said before slamming the staff of the ground again, but with purple lightning swirling around him like a tornado. This one thing made Naruto realize one thing. He has gotten into some deep shit now. Back to the group. "Kurosaki Raiga? Who is he?" Tenten asked, taking out her sword with Lee standing by, while cursing to himself for not holding on to the Yamato sword when Naruto gave it to him. "He's called the Storm of the Hidden Mist. He's the only member of the Hidden Mist 7 swordsmen to not wield a Zanbatsu-sized blade, nor does he have an affinity for just water. He uses those pike swords to summon lightning towards him with his lightning chakra infused within them, and when you hit with those swords you feel as if you were stepping through a wall of electricity," Anko said, taking out a new weapon of hers. The weapon held a 3-foot-long blade that was painted purple and black with the handle looking like a carbon steel pipe. The other two were confused as to what Anko planned to do with this weapon until she did some quick seals and grasped the handle with both hands. "Ninja Art Chakra Sword Jutsu!" Anko called out, as her chakra formed around her weapon and extended around the blade until it was now the size of an okatana. Anko then took this moment to rush in and attack the lightning user, as he ran towards the woman as well. Anko was the first to meet him, as she raised her sword and took a slash forward, which Raiga blocked with little effort before sending his second blade towards Anko's abdomen as if he was going to stab her. Anko did a quick spin out of the way before planting her right foot on the ground and pivoted back towards the man with her sword aimed at his midsection. Raiga quickly jumped over the slash and landed on his feet before sent another strike at the purple-haired woman. The snake mistress immediately back-flipped away from the lightning swordsman and extended her right arm, calling out, "Striking Shadow Snake!" Soon 4 snakes slithered from the woman's jacket before launching themselves at the twin pike swordsman, which then wrapped themselves around his body. Anko took that as her chance to end this quickly, so she drew a kunai and ran right for the man ensnared by her snakes. Raiga looked up to see the purple-haired lady looking ready to end this, but she would need a lot more skill and power to do that. He then summoned up his lightning chakra, and his pikes did their job, as they surrounded him and paralyzed the snakes. When they let go, Raiga was able to bring up his swords and block the attack from Anko, and just like that there was a power struggle. "I must condole on your skills with a sword, however they cannot match up to the power of a Mist 7 swordsman," he said as he began to push Anko back, who's starting to feel her power slip. Anko began to slip back until her eyes glowed a dark blood-red color, and her chakra output increased drastically. Anko let out a mighty roar as she shoved Raiga off her and then brought back her right arm. Raiga looked up just in time to receive a huge right to the face that sent him flying back and hitting a boulder while her eyes turned back to normal. "Anko-sensei, are you all right?" Tenten called out, rushing to the purple-haired woman, who grabbed her head at the sudden headache that came to her. "Yeah, I'm fine, kid," she said when the headache left her, and she now felt better. "Just what the hell was that power all of a sudden?" she asked herself before her thoughts were interrupted by Raiga, who got back up to his feet with a deep laugh in his voice. "Not bad, but I'm afraid you'll have to do better than that," he said as he raised his arms to the sky, and lightning erupted from his body and into the sky. Tenten and Anko then saw another blast of lightning heading right for them, which they were ready to dodge until something blocked it. They then looked up and saw Lee standing in the direction of the blast with his right arm extended towards the blast. Both girls saw the lightning traveling towards them but appeared as if something was in the way of its intent. Then as quickly as it came the lightning ceased, with Lee lowering his arm and removed his sunglasses to reveal his Mashingan. "Alright, I can finally control my powers to the point that I can make a barrier. Though it was still too weak, I guess I need to practice more on it." He turned to Raiga and stood in the stance of the lotus fist while Raiga himself got up, and was once again surrounded by lightning. "Nevertheless, I shall be your opponent," he said before charging at Raiga. With Naruto. Naruto stood tall for a moment before charging once more with Yamato in hand, and sent a side slash with the Okatana, and like before the same result came. But Naruto fought it this time, as he activated the power of Nevin thanks to Devil Essence, and absorbed the lightning into his body before breaking away from the struggle, and sent continued slashes at the man before him. Naruto then sent an upward slash at the man, which he blocked by bringing up his bladed staff. Sotachi then spun the staff in his hand, throwing Naruto off balance before getting a slash across his cheek. Naruto felt the stinging sensation of the scratch, but soon ignored it, and continued to fight the man before him. Naruto held the sword in a reverse grip and sent a right fist to the man's face only for it to be caught, which led to a knee in his gut, making him cough loudly before receiving a hard fist to the face. The white-haired boy quickly flipped himself in the air and returned Yamato before summoning Onigumo to his hand, hoping this could help him somewhat. The boy then shot chakra strings from the left arm of the weapon and pulled himself at the white-haired man, with his right fist cocked back. Sotachi held up his weapon again and blocked the attack from Naruto, only this time there was a struggle that confused the man before his Mashingun told him why. Naruto was using an earth-attributed devil arm, and lightning would not work this time around. He then saw Naruto's now brown silted eyes as he brought up his left arm and sent it towards the man's face, and like before he countered with his left arm, but was soon shocked at how much stronger the punch was now. Naruto then hopped up and kicked the man in his chin, forcing his head back before sending a forward boot to the man's face. But to the boy's shock, his left ankle was grabbed and was spun around before being thrown away. Naruto quickly flipped himself back to his feet, while on instinct brought up his arm to block a strike from the bladed staff. Naruto knocked it away before he backflipped and made some quick seals before calling out, "Earth Release, Mud River Jutsu," and slammed his hands on the ground. Mud began to form before shooting at the man, who stood like a statue with the mud going by him. He then raised the staff in the air and quickly slammed the bunt end on the ground again, but used it to throw his body away from the rushing mud flow. Naruto cursed loudly before canceling the technique, knowing that he would be needing as much chakra as he could in this matter before him. Not bad, but hardly a warm-up for me. However, I would say that you are well on your way to earning one question, Sotachi said with Naruto scowling before dismissing Onigumo and summoned Kyuubi to his hand before he charged at the man before him. He sent multiple slashes at the man, hoping to get a hit, but Sotachi simply continued to counter the strikes by continuously spinning the staff in his hand. Naruto then hopped over the man and sent another strike to the man's back, only for him to place the staff on his back and block the strike. He then grasped the sword in a reverse grip and sent a reverse slash at the man, who held the staff in front of his path. He then jumped into the air and spun the staff around his head before slamming the blade on Kyuubi, causing Naruto to get down on one knee from the force of the strike. Sotachi then landed on his feet and loosened his grip on the weapon and sent the blade end at the boy, who brought up Kyuubi to defend himself, but the force was enough to knock him off his feet. Sotachi wasted little time and used his momentum to snap kick Naruto on his left temple. The force of the kick gave a snapping sound, signifying that his neck was broken. Sotachi looked confused until the boy turned to smoke, showing the man that the boy was a shadow clone. He then felt a slash across his back and a stab following afterward, until the blade was pulled out immediately afterwards. Then quickly following afterwards was a kick to his left hip, which caused him to clutch the injury and look behind him to see a smirking Naruto with the sword on his shoulders. Sotachi simply smirked as he cracked his neck from left to right and looked at the boy before him. "Not bad, my boy. I would say that after that you've earned your first question, and I'll even be nice enough to allow you a second question. But be mindful, the third question will be harder to grasp," he said with Naruto dismissing Kyuubi and summoned Rebellion to his hand. He then placed the sword on his back and began to go through a set of seals. "Fine then, I guess I'll have to take it up a level," he said before calling out "Fire Release, Furious Flames," as he inhaled a deep breath before extinguishing a huge plume of flames at the man before him, only to see the man raise the bladed staff and slice the flame in half. He then vanished from thin air, with the end result being Naruto getting a gash on the right side of his waist. He took a moment to check it, but soon came close to Sotachi's boot in his face. That for a normal human would have made the skull cave in on itself, but for Naruto, it was enough to fracture his jaw and send him flying onto his back, only for the body to explode into smoke. Sotachi quickly ducked under a strike from behind, before using a butterfly jump to evade the strike that followed closely behind it. He then landed on his feet and brought up the blade to block the sword strike from Naruto once more. He was then taken in for a shock when he felt a slash across his back, which caused him to lose his concentration for a second, and allowed Naruto to push in and stab Sotachi in his chest, which made the boy smirk. "Million Blade Dance," he said, stabbing Sotachi multiple times at the flash of a second, before sending one final stab into the man's chest, forcing him onto his back for the first time. Naruto panted, but felt like he has accomplished a lot in what he just did, that is until Sotachi's shadow seemed to come alive, and helped in keeping the man off the ground. Naruto then saw the man get to his feet by the shadows themselves and found another smirk come to his face. "Well done indeed. I would say that you've earned the last question when you had to make me use my power," he said before doing some seals and slammed his hand on his shadow, before he called out "Shadow Prison." He said with his shadow extending towards Naruto's and became a prison to ensnarl Naruto. "What the hell is this?" Naruto asked with Sotachi laughing loudly. "It's my special power over the shadows. You cannot bind them nor can you will them, seeing as how you haven't truly mastered your own powers, but in time you will. Now then allow me to explain to you what became of our once almighty clan," Sotachi said with Naruto remaining quiet as he listened to what the man had to say to him. Back to Lee, Reiga sent 3 stabs at Lee, who dodged left and right before countering with a right kick to the man's head. Reiga ducked under it and sent an upward slash at the boy's chest, but he quickly hopped back and landed on his feet before sending a right at the lightning swordsman. Reiga crossed his arms to block the punch. before head-butted the white-haired boy before he sent a forward kick towards Lee's chest that connected and sent Lee onto the ground. Reiga then raised his swords to stab Lee, but the boy was faster than Reiga in terms of reaction. He then placed his hands behind his head, and with greatly flexibility, he was able to all of his strength into his hands and push himself back to his feet. He then placed his right hand on the ground and sent a snap kick at Reiga's head which connected before Lee placed his left hand on the ground and pushed himself even further off the ground. He then flipped himself in mid-air and sent a right kick to Reiga's head that connected once more and sent the man sprawling backwards. Lee then ran at the swordsman and sent several punches and kicks that all connected, before sending another kick to the man's head that sent him into another boulder. Lee then began to unwrap his bandages, and then removed his weights, before he then charged forward and kicked Reiga upward. The force of the kick sent Reiga high into the sky before Lee reappeared under his shadow, with his bandages now tying themselves around the man's body, before Lee began to twist spin both himself and Reiga calling out, "Primary Lotus." Lee then drove both himself and Reiga to the ground, before Lee unlatched himself and allowed Reiga to spin his head into the ground. A loud explosion of dust rose up and covered Reiga's body, with Lee himself landing on the ground. Lee was now panting hard as that move still took a lot of energy out of him, but it was still worth it for the results. He then saw the smoke around clear up, which made him smirk before his smirk left him, and his eyes widened when he saw Reiga's body turn into a puddle of water, and simply melted into the ground. "Water clone," he said before he felt a searing pain in his stomach. When he looked down, he saw the end of Reiga's pike sword before he heard a voice speak. "It's over, kid. Time for your funeral," he said as he began to pump his lightning chakra into the boy, who screamed in pain before the blade was removed and his body staggered forward with himself coughing up blood, before he grabbed his wound and got down on one knee. Reiga then raised his pike sword to slice Lee's head off, when he felt a slash going across his back, then turned and saw Tenten standing behind him with a katana in her hand. Reiga glared at the girl before he ran at the weapon user prepared to take her out. Tenten blocked a dual strike from Reiga, who then relaxed her arms and bent back with her feet on the man's stomach. Reiga then fell forward before he was thrown behind her, before the girl got back to her feet and threw a shuriken at Reiga. The lightning swordsman quickly flipped his body in the air before he stabbed the swords on the ground and skidded along the dirt. Reiga then went through some quick seals and called out, "Lightning release! Thunderbolt Jutsu!" The sky lit up with thunder before a bolt of lightning fell from the sky and headed towards Tenten, who jumped backwards and watched the lightning hit the ground and made a small crater. Tenten then raised her sword to block another strike from Reiga before she took out another scroll and opened it with a puff of smoke covering her. Reiga then saw the girl come out of the smoke with a new weapon, which was a metal staff pole with a blade at the end. Tenten smirked to herself before twirling the staff blade around her before held it in a stance. Reiga snarled as he charged at the girl who ran at him as well. Tenten twirled the blade around her head and sent a wide slash at Reiga's legs, which caused him to hop back before sending a blast of lightning at the girl. Tenten slammed the bunt end of the staff into the ground and pole vaulted herself at the man. With the staff twirling around her head, she landed in front of Reiga and sent a quick slash at Reiga's left ribcage, which hit before twirling the weapon once more and took another quick slash across Reiga's chest that also hit. The girl then took a small step back before sending the staff blade forward into a stabbing motion, but Reiga was not allowing it. He pushed the blade aside and punched the girl in her jaw, making her stagger back before Reiga would send his second at the girl. He would have succeeded had a pair of snakes not wrapped themselves around the man to save the girl from certain harm. Tenten then looked to see Anko back in the game and looked happy. "Anko-sensei, you okay?" she said with the purple-haired woman nodding as she held on to her chakra sword with a determined look. "Yeah, I'm alright. Just a little power overload," she said with Reiga paralyzing the snakes once more with a snarl on his face from being hit with snakes again. "Fine, if you two bitches want a funeral so bad then I'll be more than glad to execute it," he said before he felt his danger senses go off. He then rolled to the side as a Zanbatsu-sized sword sliced through the air he once stood in. Reiga rolled a little more before he hopped into the air and landed on his feet to see that Lee was now back in the game as well, with Kokushibu placed on his shoulders. Reiga just stood in disbelief as he saw the area he stabbed Lee in was now fully healed. "How are you even alive? I stabbed you and electrocuted you," Reiga said with Lee smirking. "You should have made sure that you finished the job," he said with Reiga snarling once more and brought forth more of his lightning as he prepared to attack. "Fine then, I'll give you all a funeral," he said as he raised his sword and sent a larger blast of lightning at the group, but to everyone's shock, Naruto appeared in front of the group of ninja with Nevin in hand. Naruto quickly swung the guitar in its scythe form and sliced the blot of lightning in half. The others were shocked by the boy's appearance as well as the boy's weapon, but were soon happy to see that the boy was all right and survived his ordeal. "Time to shrub my pain with my fingers," he said, as he played a chord and summoned a tornado of lightning-infused bats flew at Raiga, who hopped back when the blast hit the ground. Naruto then played a harder chord, which summoned more lightning towards Raiga, who continued to dodge until the lightning stopped and Naruto simply smirked at that, before he turned to the group behind him. "Hey guys, you missed me?" Naruto asked, with Tenten responding by giving him a flying hug. "Naruto-kun, you're all right," Tenten said, with Naruto smirking at her. "Of course I am. Did you really think I would let that kill me?" he said before he faced Raiga, who was now extremely pissed at the situation given to him. "Okay, that does it. I'm going to give you all a funeral," he said as he raised his swords above his head, ready to take the group out, but Naruto was already prepared as he raised his right hand and called out, "Serenity." The familiar invisible blast left his hand and nailed the lightning using Shinobi in his chest and forced him on his back, with Naruto smirking up a storm. "It looks like you're no longer able to fight now," he said with Raiga snarling before he got back up to his feet. The white-haired boy was not focused on the matter, as he was now staring at Raiga's body. "I'm afraid that you need a funeral, Raiga. After all, you're not even alive anymore," he said with everyone looking shocked at that. How could this man be dead when they all fought the man with him and were taken to their limit? "What are you talking about, kid? We all fought with him and he took us to our limit. How could he be dead?" Anko said with Naruto pointing towards the places Tenten got him. "Look at the areas he was hit. There are no traces of blood, and as a plus he's the leader of the Kurogane family. If he were to fight alone with you guys all taking him on, someone would have came and taken the sleeping princess back and left the area. That has not happened. If you guys were fighting the real Raiga, then he would have left long ago," Naruto said with Raiga beginning to laugh before he got up and looked at the white-haired boy with his voice changing into a darker tone. "So you figured it out, eh? I knew that only a member of my clan could see through my technique. And by the looks of things, that other one is part of my half of the clan, but you'll need more training with those eyes before you can claim your rights in the clan. But you both have quite the destinies ahead of you," he said before his form changed to that of Kazuma Sotachi, with Naruto pointing his weapon at the man with a glare in his eyes. "Just what the hell are you talking about, you bastard? We shape our own destinies," Naruto said with Sotachi chuckling loudly. "We shall see, my boy, but I'm afraid that I can't stay here any longer than I need to. But the time will come when you both will seek me for answers, and when you do, you'll be given a choice that you must make. Farewell," he said before he brought up his right hand and snapped it. Behind him, black smoke picked up, and a large dragon came out of the smoke. Okay, I really don't feel like describing the dragon, so type in Red Dragon Archfiend at Google and you'll know what it looks like. "We will meet again, my boy," he said as he hopped onto the back of his dragon, who roared loudly and began to flap his wings. Naruto stared at the man flying away before he disappeared in thin air and his teammates. "Naruto-kun, who was that?" Tenten asked with Naruto shaking his head. "I don't know, but we have a mission to finish," Naruto said as the group nodded, but they would ask the boy later on what happened when they were split up. 2 hours later, Naruto laid down on the bed of the hotel he stayed in for the night, with his thoughts running through his mind in lightning speed at 3 thoughts per second. His thoughts went over what Kazuma Sotachi told him, and everything that was said amazed him greatly at what his distant ancestor discussed to him. The Kazama clan and the Namikaze clan were related. Over 200 years ago, long before Konohagakure no Sato or even the other hidden villages were even built, there stood one clan that called themselves the Sparda clan. The Sparda clan stood amongst the elemental countries as not only the most powerful, but also the most secretive clan in the entire nation. They also held the bloodline that they themselves dubbed Devil, due to their abilities to wield demonic weapons, and due to their ancestor, the Dark Knight Sparda. Their clan's bloodline was never a concrete single bloodline, like most other clans. Instead, their clans would vary between 2 bloodline traits, a Dujutsu, eye technique, or a Bujutsu, body technique. If you held the Bujutsu, then you were given the power called Devil Essence, which allowed your body to absorb the traits in any demon you kill. And when you kill a demon along with the devil arm power, you will gain more than just the knowledge on using it. Then once you've truly mastered the powers of Devil Essence along with the devil arms you wield, a new power would awaken to complete your variant of the bloodline called the Devil Bringer, or as most people would like to refer to it as the right arm of the devil. The arm would increase the strength of the user's arm, and would allow you to grapple your opponents in, no matter what distance they are. It also magnifies Devil's Essence to the point where you can absorb the abilities of demons that you fight and fuse it with the Devil Bringer. That was the power Naruto held, but then came Lee. If you held the Dujutsu, then you were given a power called the Mashingan Devil's Eye, which gave you the power to read the essence of a person's soul and allowed you to choose what your actions with their future will be. The second ability will allow you to not only learn how to use the devil arm, but would even allow you to take an ability from the demon, though that would only work when the devil arm is present. The final ability allows you summon the demons you kill to the world and hold control over them. The power would also remain permanently active, so it will give you time to train it and work on it before you master it. Once the eye is fully mastered by the bearer, a new power would activate called Devil Control. Devil Control was a power that gave the bearer the power to hypnotize and control demons. However, the power would take years to train and would take even longer to master. That was the power of the Sparda clan, two mighty powers held within one clan. So now the question was, how did the power of the clans split apart? Well, it happened about 100 years ago when two boys were born amongst the clan. They were twin brothers of the clan head and were given the names Sotachi and Shizaru. Sotachi was born 1 minute after his brother, and as such, Sotachi was named the clan heir. As the years went by, the clan noticed that while they both were twins, they held the two variants of the bloodline. Over the years under Sotachi's leadership, the numbers of the clan were becoming thin, with their enemies become more and more by the day. Therefore both Sotachi and Shizaru came up with a plan. They needed to split. Since they both held the twin variants of the bloodline, it was agreed that Sotachi would take the ones with his bloodline, and migrated to Kusanokuni. Then once they were there they would call themselves the Kazama clan. Shizaru would do the same and take the ones that held his bloodline to Hinokuni, which was how he met the leaders of the Uchiha Senju clan alliance, Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. It was also thanks to them that Konohagakure now exists, along with the Hyuga, Nara, and Sarutobi clans' help as well. In addition, from that day forth that Shizaru would call his part of the clan Namikaze. He just could not believe it. His clan held a second half of itself, and he now had a family. Lee would now have to go by the name Kazama Lee, and he would now go by his name as Namikaze Naruto. It was time for true changes. 2 days passed when the team returned to the gates of Konoha, and within 4 hours Naruto found himself sighing in contentment as he sat within the heated waters of the onsen. After leaving the Hokage's office and picked up his payment, including the bounty he got for Aoi's head, he'd gone directly to Ichiraku's, where he devoured 20 bowls of ramen and 10 whole pizzas. Following this, he'd headed over to the hot spring to relax his body in the soothing hot water. His mind continued to go over the things he learned about his family and how he and Lee were now cousins. Not from a direct family, but from a long list of ancestry, as well as the founders of their clans. Then came the idea of his new weapon, javelin, the staff blade that Sotachi gave him as a reward for proving his worthiness in both the Namikaze and Kazama clans. He knew that he had to do a lot of practice with that weapon before he could fight with it, but he was sure that he could find a teacher to assist him in that regard. After a while he got out of the onsen, and was prepared to leave the area until his thoughts were interrupted by a giggle, which caused him to look in that location. What he saw was a large man crouched in front of a fence with a notebook in hand. The man had long, spiky white hair, though a lighter shade than Naruto's own, that hung down near his waist. He wore a red sleeveless hayori over a top that was a light shade of green that matched his pants with fishnets at the end over his cloths, along with a pair of wooden samurai-style sandals. His look was completed with a large scroll attached to his back. That outfit, it looks like Jiraiya, the Toad Sannin of the legendary Three, he thought before a smirk found itself on his face as he approached the man from behind before he spoke. "And just what the hell do you think you're doing?" Naruto asked, with the old man waving him off without even looking at him. "Beat it, can't you see that I'm busy here?" he said, getting back to peeking on the women. "Fine then, I guess Namikaze Minato was right about you, huh? Perverted godfather," he said, watching his trap line the man, hook, line, and sinker. The man's eyes widened before he turned around and caught sight of Naruto, but saw that he didn't resemble Minato, but the blue eyes told him that this was his godson. "Naruto, is that you?" he asked, with Naruto simply smirking at the old man. "You got it, perverted godfather, but judging by your reaction the old man didn't tell you about my changes lately, hasn't he?" Naruto said, with a perverted Sannin nodding. Naruto then went into an explanation about his meeting of his ancestors, the Kyuubi, and how he learned about his family. Jiraiya's face was filled with surprise, curiosity, and unhappiness. He was surprised to learn how Naruto became so strong over the last year, and was even more surprised as to learn Naruto knew the Rasengan but was curious as to how he learned it. Then came the unhappiness when he learned that his sensei decided to abandon him to teach the Uchiha privately. It's obvious that this man likes to play favorites, because after all the man had not one student but 2 students in the finals. Jiraiya was going to have a nice long chat with the boy's sensei about loyalty. For the first time in his life he decided to not peep on women, instead he was going to spend this time with his godson. So the old man took the boy to the male side of the hot spring so that way they could talk longer on what happened in the boy's life. As the boy's story continued, the old man couldn't help but smirk when he learned that the boy now has 6 girls, with one in the newly named Spring Country, and one was Jonin. To say the least, the boy was a chip off the old block, with his father being a player himself before he met Kushina. He felt proud that his godson already had a small harem, and was further surprised to learn that it included a chunin with a rare bloodline, a jonin that was once the apprentice of his former teammate, a priestess and even the daughter of the Hyuga clan head. Then came the idea of training the boy. He said that his taijutsu sensei was training his newly discovered cousin over the next 3 weeks. His second sensei, Mitarashi Anko, was training his third girlfriend, though he never looked at it like that in real life, over the next 3 weeks. And then came his own so-called sensei, and he was too busy training that stupid Uchiha. Even without a sensei over the following weeks, Naruto could still win his fights with ease, but he wasn't going to be without a teacher if he had anything to say about it. "Alright Gaki, don't worry about not getting any training over the next 3 weeks, I'll be doing that myself," he said with Naruto smirking. "Now then, seeing as how you know the Rasengan, I suppose you don't know your father's version of the body flicker technique?" he asked with Naruto nodding. "Well then I will be teaching you that over this break, but for today you just relax while I have a chat with the old man," he said with the boy nodding, and vanished in a puff of smoke. Naruto simply relaxed into the hot spring with a wide smirk on his face. Things were once more getting shaken up. Elsewhere, Tenten panted hard as Anko stepped before her with a smirk on her face. The girl was doing very well for the short time they'd been training, and she was even helping her with her elemental training as well, seeing as how the girl was fighting a wind user and weapons would not work against her. She would need to utilize her own element, and to the purple-haired woman's shock, the girl held both the fire element and the earth element. She herself held both elements, which meant that she now had a new apprentice. She could teach this girl everything she knew, and could even learn something from her. Right now she had the girl go back to the basics such as tree walking and water walking, but this time she had the girl wear a leaf on her forehead. Then she would have the girl do push-ups and sit-ups on top of the surface in the training. Tenten didn't mind this much training, as it was indeed making her feel stronger about herself and being with Naruto. It was soon that she learned of the mark that now lied on her neck as well as Anko's. They were identical in terms of it being a fox but were different due to both the color and background design. Tenten knew she never gotten a tattoo in her life, but it seemed to have been there for a while. In fact, she was sure that this mark came from after she had sex with Naruto. Anko was on the same plate as Tenten, as she saw the curse mark Orochimaru gave her was gone, and in its place was that mark. And this mark had to have come after she herself had sex with the boy. Then came that power overload she felt when fighting on Devil's Island. That power held a magnificent feeling to it while simultaneously it gave her a familiar feeling, like she knew this power already. She needed to learn how to grasp it again, and the key seemed to be this mark. She would ask Naruto about it later on, but for right now she had a student to train, elsewhere. Hiashi was smirking to himself as he watched his daughter stand before him with heavy breath in the Hyuga clan's personal dojo. She has been working very hard over the past week, and had to say that she was stronger by the day, as she remained in the Juken stance with sweat covering her body. Hiashi himself wasn't tired at all, seeing as how he was used to this training, and he also considered this to be light training compared to what he's gone through on his way up to becoming the clan head. He was so proud to see that the girl had grown stronger over the past 6 months since she finally grew out of the shell she placed herself in. Her shyness was gone, and was proud to call herself a Hyuga. They had been sparring like this for 15 minutes, just him and Hinata working on her technique and her precision with the Byakugan, and when he noticed that her strikes were getting better, he would up the ante to help her continue on her growth. He knew he should say this soon, but he was truly proud of his eldest daughter's improvement. She held natural grace and flexibility to dodge moves that would be hard to block. He was also teaching her how to use the kaiten, and teaching her how to release chakra around her body to use it properly. She was doing fine, but with more work, she would be able to do it perfectly. "Great job today, Hinata. You've grown very well over the time spent training. However, I'm afraid that you cannot learn the standard form of the Juken style. As you know, the Juken style requires one to be firm and steady like a rock, unmovable and strong-willed. However, you are more like water, your moves are fluid and flexible. As such, I think it's time I train you in the style your mother specialized herself," he said with Hinata's eyes widening. "So what we shall do for the next 3 weeks is train you in increasing your speed and your chakra control. Once you have the levels needed, you shall begin to learn the style of your mother," the Hyuga head said with Hinata nodding with a smile on her face. She would now become stronger and would become even closer to her mother. 3 weeks later, Naruto sat down at the edge of his bed on the morning of the Chunin exam finals after waking up 2 hours early to prepare for the test. He held a highly serious look on his face that told everyone not to piss him off. He was going to do it. He was going to fight Neji and show him why you do not fuck with the devil. He was broken from his thoughts when he felt a pair of hands wrap themselves around his neck and a kiss on his cheek. He looked to the side and saw that Haku was now awake from last night, after she came into his room to give him some good luck sex, which he enjoyed greatly, especially when she showed a different side to her sexual self. He always presumed her as a girl that likes dominate sex, the type of sex that involved a man doing all the work and blow her brains out. Well, this time she was the one in the driver's seat and took Naruto for a ride he would never forget. When asked on it, she claimed that it was to thank him further for taking her in and changing her life for the better, but he knew the truth behind it. She was trying to make up for their first time, and prove that she could do things that most girls would refuse to do. "Damn, this girl can be quite the devil when she wants it," he said with the girl sitting beside him with only a small bra and a thong set. "What's the matter, Naruto-kun? Why do you seem so gloomy?" she asked with Naruto sighing as she rubbed his back. "It's because I couldn't protect Hinata during the prelims, and I'm now facing the person that nearly killed her. I don't know what I'm going to do, because if I kill him, I'll be hurting her for killing her cousin, but if I do nothing, then I'll be letting that bastard think he can get away with it," he said with his head hung down before Haku picked it up and made him look her in the eye. "Naruto-kun, that was not your fault. You have to remember that that clan held a large animosity within itself, and that fight you saw was the proof of it. Neji only did what he felt was the only option he could do, and sadly Hinata was the target in his eyes. But what you can do is make sure that he won't ever have that type of thought again, as well as thinking he got away with this," she said with Naruto smiling to himself. Not only did she act like a devil, but she spoke like an angel, just like Hinata. Meanwhile, Village Stadium. The whole village filled the stadium walls with excitement and fun planned for this big day, the day of the Chunin exam finals. In fact, the finals were so big people closed down their shops and stores just to watch the fights, especially since the majority of the competitors were from the hosting village. This also further proved that they were still the strongest amongst the hidden villages, and even further backed up the statement with both the Hyuga clan prodigy and Konoha's shining star, Uchiha Sasuke. Many bets were placed on him winning the entire contest, with few going towards the others but the ultimate underdog, as he was placed with a 50-1 underdog bet that only a handful of bets on. Why were people placing him as the underdog and underestimating him? Because he was the Kyuubi's Jinchurikis as well as the dead last in the Konoha Academy, and was even fighting last year's number Genin in the first round. How could he win? Well, Anko, Kurenai, Guy, Jiraiya and Asuma were the ones that thought otherwise to the idiots that bet against the boy. They saw the boy fight in the preliminary rounds and saw the brutality and strength he showed in his fight. The Uchiha got the win off the skin of his teeth, and Naruto got the win just by fighting. They could not wait to see the looks on the idiot's face when they not only won some serious money but when the boy proved them all wrong. Kurenai sat with her best friend Anko in the stands, who had on some new cloths that surprised the woman. She decided to get rid of her skirt, nettings and tan trench coat that she so proudly wore, and in its place was something that added more to her sexiness and to the imagination of how she would look naked. In place of the coat and shirt was a new tan long-sleeve button shirt with only 2 buttons hooked so it could show her bust line and her belly button, and a pair of brown gloves. Her skirt was replaced with tan pants that stopped on the upper half of her thighs with brown boots on her feet. Her headband was no longer tied on her forehead, as it was now tied around her right thigh. Finally, to end her look, she now wore her hair down to her neck and wore a pair of tan-colored sunglasses. She basically turned her look from the town slut to the mature hottie on the corner. Kurenai was surprised by her friend's new look, and was even more surprised when she saw the strange mark on her neck that she got from Naruto. She found it strange that she held a new mark from the curse mark she once held. And when she asked Anko about it the first time she saw it, her response was that she got a new boyfriend. When Kurenai asked who it was, Anko simply answered in one word, Naruto. That amazed her greatly, that she would even consider dating a boy that was almost 10 years her junior, until Anko explained clearly that it was needed for her to get free from Orochimaru's grip. She went into explanation that the boy was mature for his age, and while childish on occasions, he was a serious person when given the chance. Then Anko went even further to tell the woman that if she opened up and tried not to keep her reputation as the Ice Queen, she would have found someone better than Asuma, who cheated on her when they first started dating. Kurenai was taken aback by that statement, and would have fought with her best friend about it until she actually thought on it. The woman was right. When she dated Asuma, she was happy, and when she learned that he cheated on her, she then took on her reputation as the Ice Queen, shooting down every male that tried with her and focused on her training as a ninja. Maybe it was time to try something different, and who knows, maybe she would ask Anko if she could join into her little thing with Naruto. Hinata sat in the stands with the losers of the prelims with her new look on. She now wore skin-tight black shorts that stopped just above her knee with bandages tied around her legs and black ninja sandals. Her top was a tight long-sleeve turtleneck shirt that stopped above her midsection. Her headband was now moved from her neck to her waist, and was being worn like a belt with a purple strap replacing the blue one. Everyone was surprised by the girl's new appearance that prompted Sakura and Ino to ask her why the sudden change, but it resulted in the girl giving them the cold shoulder. Apparently she picked that up from both Daddy and Naruto. It was then that Haku arrived to the location with a new look that brought all eyes on her. She now wore dark blue pants that led to the middle of her thigh with shinobi sandals of the same color. Her top was sleeveless and had a fishnet shirt underneath that stopped above her belly button and the middle of the biceps on both of her arms, with her hands covered in dark blue gloves that had her fingers cut off. Her headband was tied around her waist with a dark blue cloth attached to the metal plate. Finally, to finish her new look, her hair was tied in a loose ponytail with 2 pins in her hair and a few strands of her hair going down the side of her face. The girl then sat beside Hinata, which further confused them all since they never saw the two together before, and Haku was asked on it, but like Hinata, she too gave them the cold shoulder. "So Haku-chan, where's Naruto-kun? I thought he would get here first," Hinata said, unknowingly catching everyone's attention. "He said that he wants to make a cool entrance to make everyone and Neji piss their pants," Haku said with a little giggle along with Hinata giggling as well. "Really? I always thought he would just come in with that aloofness he normally gives people," said Hinata with Haku shaking her head. "You know as well as I do that Naruto-kun does far more than act aloof. He doesn't even do that when he wakes up," she said with Hinata nodding her head, which everyone's eyes widened. "Excuse me, but who are you and how do you know Naruto?" Ino asked, getting the girl's attention. "My name's Momochi Haku and I'm Naruto-kun's roommate as well as his girlfriend," she said, getting a shocked reaction from those that had an idea about the boy. "Wait, since when did Naruto ever have a girlfriend? And how long have you been living with him?" Sakura said, always believing that Naruto was incapable of a girlfriend as well as sounding a little jealous about that comment which Haku and Hinata caught on instantly. "She's been living with him ever since you guys got back from your C-ranked mission, and she's not Naruto's girlfriend, she's one of his girlfriends," Hinata said with both girls looking shocked by that statement. "What do you mean by one of his girlfriends?" Ino asked with Hinata and Haku shrugging their shoulders. "It was bound to come out anyway. What I mean is that he has more than one girlfriend, with me being one of them," Hinata said with Sakura and Ino looking shocked as well as everyone including Kiba, as he wanted to date the girl but never knew the right moment to ask her out. Before any more questions could be asked, Sarutobi made his speech to everyone in the stadium and began to the finals. Meanwhile, in the stands, Sarutobi sat down in his chair with a cautious look in his eyes. That damn Kakashi has yet to show up with the Uchiha, and the boys' match came after the first match. He should have known Kakashi would do this, as that man was probably confident that the Uchiha wouldn't get disqualified due to him being an Uchiha, as well as knowing that the crowd would disappointed if he didn't his chance to fight. "Hokage-sama, there is still no sign of Kakashi or the Uchiha," said one of the Junin with Sarutobi scowling. "Damn it, Kakashi." He thought, knowing that the man was indeed thinking like that, and was trying to get the crowd hyped to see the boy fight. "We currently have a squad of Anbu Black Ops searching for the boy. Do you believe that Orochimaru captured him already?" one of the Junin asked with Sarutobi shaking his head. "I wish," he said under a muttered breathe, for once approving of his traitorous student's motives. He soon got back his composure, as the Kazekage made his appearance with his guards walking beside him. Sarutobi narrowed his eyes at the Kazekage, as he felt an ominous feeling about that, as well as the need to rip his neck off from his shoulders. "Kazekage Dono, good to see that you arrived from your trip," he said with a fake smile on his face. "Not at all, though it is a good thing that the exams were held here this time around. While you are still able to lead your nation, a trip like that from Konoha to Suna or any other of the 5 great nations may be too much for you, Hokage-sama. Perhaps the time has come for you to choose a 5th in the Hokage seat," he said with Sarutobi laughing. "Please don't treat me like I'm old. I may be past my prime, but the fire within me still burns as strong as it once did in my prime," he said with the Kazekage sitting in the seat besides the old man. "It appears that 2 of the competitors are missing and they seem to be of your own village," he said with his eyes narrowed on the floor. "Yes, well, it appears that young Sasuke has made the decision of not showing up on time to his exam. I have no choice but to disqualify him from the exam. As for the other one, Sparda Naruto, I know where he is and he's simply preparing for a big entrance. He said already getting a message from the boy via Dragon Summon that told him that he would arrive once his match was about to begin, thus excluding the Hokage from disqualifying him. And, if you want to complain about that, then leave this story via back button and move away from the premises. But why give the other boy an excuse and let the Uchiha boy stand in the flames? Many lords came to your village to see the famous Uchiha fight in your exams. In fact, the betting pools are highly focused on the boys winning in the entire exam and getting to the next level in the shinobi world," said the Kazekage. "I am aware of this, though I had no idea you were a betting man," he said with the man nodding. "Of course I am. I'm begging that my son, Gaara, will take the whole tournament by storm," he said with the old man smirking. "Very well then, I suppose that my choice in Naruto will match yours and your own son." "Very well then, I suppose that it would be fine to allow the boy to fight for the sake of the crowd, however he shall not be promoted no matter how well he does. His sensei might like to play favorites but not I," he said as he got up from his seat and made his speech to the public that gave him many cheers. Once the man sat down, Jiraiya appeared in the Kage booth, which caused the Kazekage's eyes to widen slightly before they narrowed it at the man down below. "Okay, everyone, just in case you forgot, these are the lineups for the exam," said the proctor named Shiratori Genma, as he showed the lineup of Genins, the paper that held the fight set. "Now this is a 3-round tournament, seeing as how we are pressed for time. When the second round comes, the first fight will be between the first and second round winners, with the second fight being between the fourth and fifth round winners. The third round winner will then take on the winners of that second match, and whoever wins that match will move on to the finals, along with the first match winner," he said before Shikamaru raised his hand. "Hold on. That troublesome white-haired boy and that stupid Uchiha has gotten here yet. We need more time to wait for them," he said with the proctor shaking his head. "I'm afraid that we can't do so. I'm allowed to give Naruto an extension of 5 minutes, and give the Uchiha time to arrive by the time his match starts, but that's all I can do. So I ask that you all please go to the stands except for Neji, while we wait for Naruto to arrive," he said with everyone nodding, with Neji smirking up an arrogant smirk. "Looks like the dobe is all talk and no play," Neji said before being socked in the head by a passing Tenten. The Hyuga prodigy turned to face the glare of his female teammate. "Don't talk about Naruto-kun like that, Neji, he will be here," she said as she headed towards the fighter's ring to watch the match. Neji's smirk soon found itself back on his face, seeing as how Naruto has yet to show up. Soon the time came where the proctor's time limit ran out, with Neji's smirk turning into an evil grin, as Naruto would now be disqualified, and he would move up automatically. "Proctor, call the match. The dobe is not coming," he said with the proctor sighing, and was about to call the match until a voice spoke. "Who told you that I was quitting?" said a voice that rang all throughout the stadium. Everyone's eyes then saw a small amount of smoke build up around the far corner of the stadium wall. The sky then darkened with lightning building up in the sky, before a bolt fell from the sky and hit the area that smoke was building up, and turned it into a wild fire. The fire then grew in length till it was the size of a gate. Everyone watched in confusion of the fire until cloaked hooded figures could be seen walking out of it. When the figures stepped out of the fire, they showed no traces of the fire burning their clothing, or even being there. In each of the figures' hands were a staff pole that held fire that further proved that the flames were real. Soon it was 10 rows of figures standing with lit torches, but still no Naruto. That was until it started. A loud hum was heard before the sound was echoed with the words, "I hear voices in my head, T.Y. Capture me, they understand, they talk to me." Play song, Voices, by rock group Rev Theory. Another figure walked out of the flame, but this time he was joined by 3 more. 2 were figures with strange features and the other looked like a ghost of some sort. Naruto was now walking through the rows of cloaked figures with his 2 trusty swords, Yamato and Rebellion in hand, along with 2 of his clones behind him, in his light and dark forms walking by his side, with a celestial figure appearing to be following him with his eyes glowing silted red. The boy was wearing a new style of dress once more. This time his uniform consisted of black Anbu class boots, black pants, and a black vest with a mesh shirt underneath it. On top of his outfit was a red Hiyori with black flames licking the bottom, and held the rebellion sword on his back, along with the hoister for his guns, Angel and Reaper. But people were currently staring at what was resting on the boy's right shoulder as he walked forward. A large black belt with a fox-head centerpiece, along with 2 mini pieces beside it, that held the image of claws on it, with twin rows of 10 red orbs going down the belt straps rested on his shoulders. People didn't understand the purpose of the belt, as it seemed to make a statement of some sort, but nobody could figure out what kind of statement it was. But most weren't as stupid as the ones questioning it, as they knew what this meant. It was Naruto's way of saying, "I'm the best." That belt was saying that in order to get to the top you would first have to get past me to get there. The ones that understood the meaning smirked at that. This kid had some balls on him to say that silent comment. Naruto continued on, until he stood in front of the row of clones and stared directly at Neji, as he raised his belt into the air, and made the clones explode, except for the ones that walked with him, in a puff of smoke with the fire leaving, and the song ending abruptly. Naruto then placed the belt back on his shoulders and simply stared at the boy before him. What's that supposed to be? Neji said, pointing at Naruto's belt. Then I'm going to win the whole thing, but not before I get some payback. He said. He tossed his belt into the air before grasping Rebellion's handle and stabbed the blade into the ground. He then tossed Yamato to the clone on the left, who caught it and rested the handle on his shoulders before he took a step forward and planted his foot on Rebellion. Naruto brought his foot up from the back, which picked the sword up from the ground before it was tossed to the second clone on his right, which that clone caught and placed the sword on his back. Naruto then raised his hand and everyone watched as the belt turned into a sword and landed firmly in the boy's hand. The boy then did a few swings before placing the sword on his back like Rebellion, where it sat perfectly still. Neji quickly activated his Byakugan to see how the boy was doing that, as well as to examine the weapon for any weaknesses if the boy used it during their fight. How are you doing that, making your weapon stick to your back perfectly as well as your clones? He asked with Naruto looking him directly in the eye. That's because when you possess weapons like these they form a bond that's magnetic. In fact, that bond is so strong that they chose to remain with their master to see what the future will bring for him, he said before looking towards the proctor, who nodded his head and turned towards the crowd, who looked ready to see a glorious fight, and by fight they mean Naruto losing and getting his ass handed to him. Very well then, the first fight between Sparda Naruto and Hyuga Neji, Hajime, he said before hopping back. Neither boys moved from the spot they stood on, they just stared each other down with a hard look. Neji already had his Byakugan active, and was already in his taijutsu stance, with a smirk plastered on his face, while he watched the boy, whose eyes were currently sealed shut. Naruto stood perfectly still with his eyes closed and his arms behind his back. The boy's eyes then snapped forward as he tossed a kunai at Neji's head. Neji moved to the left to dodge the kunai, which caused Naruto to smirk, as which Neji didn't understand. The ground beside Neji caved in on itself as a fist came out and aimed at the boy's head. Neji quickly blocked the punch and sent an open palm into the boy's chest only for him to explode, showing itself as a clone. He then turned to see Naruto smirk once more before he shot forward and jumped towards the boy while delivering a spinning heel kick. Neji blocked it with his left hand before his eyes widened when Naruto brought his right leg up and sent it towards Neji's head, which he blocked with his right forearm. Naruto then spun his body away from the boy before he landed on his feet and hopped towards Neji with his right arm cocked back. He then sent it toward Neji's face, but the boy blocked it and sent a palm thrust at the boy. Naruto moved to the side before he grabbed Neji's extended arm and flipped himself over it before landing in a crouched position. He then moved in lightning precision as he drew a kunai and tossed it at the back of Neji's head. The Hyuga prodigy immediately spun around and grasped the kunai before bringing it up to try and stab the boy. Naruto immediately placed his hands on the ground and flipped himself away from Neji as he stabbed the ground. The boy scowled before he threw the kunai at the white-haired boy. Naruto did a few more front flips before one big push, did a corkscrew spin in the air before landing on his feet, and grabbed the kunai. Naruto simply smirked before pocketing the kunai in his pouch and crossed his arm. Thanks for returning my kunai, however I'm afraid that this fight is pointless. You can't beat me, Naruto said very nonchalantly, shocking many in the stands as well as those that knew the white-haired boy. Neji himself was livid that a first-year genin and dead last of his class would go so far as to talk down upon him. He was a member of the Hyuga clan, the strongest clan within the entire village, as well as being one of its highest potential holding members. This kid wasn't going to get under his skin so easily. So he closed his eyes and calmed himself down before he spoke. If you believe that you shall win, then you are a fool. Fate has already declared that I'm the victor, so not matter what you try, it's hopeless, he said with Naruto scoffing. Fate doesn't exist. Fate can only come from the words of cowards, fools, and weaklings that assume that such a thing exists. You are within all three of those categories after what you did, he said with a bored look, protruding his face. Neji's eyes narrowed as he glared at the boy with his body tensing as he heard the obvious insult. Naruto saw this and found his smirk returning, and decided to add more fuel to the fire. After all, trying to intentionally destroy one's own blood, as well as trying to kill them when they no longer desired to fight. Sure, you are a coward and a weakling. The boy finished with Neji activating his Byakugan and ran forward in blind anger, which made Naruto's smirk increase. His plan was working quite well as it seemed, because Neji rushed forward and sent a palm strike at the boy that missed, when the boy simply sidestepped past it. Neji recovered fast and sent fast strikes at the white-haired boy, who kept dodging left and right and moving around the attacks. Neji continued to send strikes that would miss no matter how fast his strikes were or how close they came to hitting the boy. It then hit him. He can't continue to fight like this for any longer. Naruto held far too much stamina. If the boy wanted it, he could continue to insult the Hyuga prodigy and dodge all of his strikes and make him tire himself out, especially seeing as how his own attacks were sloppy. The Juken style is required for the user to be focused on his enemy and hold a calm head, which wasn't just a rule on the style but a rule in the shinobi world. Naruto dodged another strike before he jumped back and smirked. "You know, Neji, if you continue to fight like this you'll only hurt yourself. Don't tell me that this is all the great Hyuga prodigy can do," he said with the smirk still on his face. Stands. Most people watching the match were in shock. In the beginning many had thought the Uzumaki was crazy rushing at the Hyuga head-on. The older shinobi in the arena who had heard of the Uzumaki's skill in the past were impressed. Especially since the blonde hadn't shown any of his skill in years except when pulling pranks. The ones who had written the rumors off, however, were seeing that they held more truth than they believed. The two examiners were impressed with the boy, though. They, like everyone else that didn't know the white-haired kid, and some that did, had assumed he was an idiot. What they saw, however, was completely different. Like most Leaf Nin, they knew the Hyuga clan was obsessed with fate. They were just surprised the blonde had used that to his advantage. Hiyashi was also surprised with this turn of events. He couldn't believe it took that little effort to make Neji lose his temper. He could also see the angrier the boy became, the sloppier his movements became. He had to give Naruto some credit. The boy had done his homework. Even still, he was surprised by how the white-haired genin was taunting the boy, but then again, considering the extent of Hinata's injuries, he shouldn't have been. Especially considering how close the two were in terms of skill. He quickly shook himself from his thoughts before focusing back on the fight. Arena floor. Stood tall with his smirk now replaced with a bored look, as Neji panted hard and tried to return the breath in his lungs. Neji scowled as he saw Naruto's bored look and felt the need to wipe it off. He then dashed forward and used the acceleration to send a strong palm strike at Naruto's chest, with boy simply rolling to the side and pushing Neji in his back and made the boy trip and fall face first in the dirt. Neji then got up and wiped off the dirt and charged again with another palm strike coming out again, but this time Naruto dodged once more before sending a wicked right to Neji's jaw. He then sent a left to Neji's chin before cocking his right arm back again, but this time he focused a little chakra into his right arm before sending it at the boy's face, which forced the Hyuga to stagger on his feet. Neji took a few more steps back to regain his composure before he looked up to see Naruto shaking his head, which further infuriated him as he got back into his stance while taking a few deep breaths. Naruto smirked once more as he placed his hands in his pockets and grinned at the boy. "Well then, now that you're serious I guess I should as well," he said before removing his sword and tossed it in the air. As the sword twirled in the air, Naruto removed his Hiyori and held it to the side as Kyuubi stabbed the ground beside him, and then placed his Hiyori on the handle. Everyone then got a good look at his muscled tattooed arms, which made the entire crowd of girls blush, and some of the girls looking at the boy with lust. But Naruto wasn't concerned about this, as he did some quick seals and called out, "Dark Fire Release Grand Fireball Jutsu." He inhaled a deep breath before releasing a massive amount of flames at the wide-eyed boy. Neji dodged to the side and narrowly dodged a right fist from Naruto, who took that momentum and spun his body, which helped him send a strong kick to Neji's head, but was blocked by his forearm and was sent skidding along the ground. Neji stopped himself before looking up to see Naruto sending another right at the Hyuga prodigy, but this time Neji was ready for it. He then began to spin while simultaneously expelling chakra from his body and called out, "Divination Whirl." The chakra he expelled now formed a shield, which not only blocked Naruto's punch but sent him back, but the boy was able to flip himself to his feet and await Neji's palm strike. Naruto then surprised everyone, as instead of dodging like he's been doing in the entire fight, this time he blocked the strike and sent a left which Neji himself blocked. Naruto and Neji then began to send and block strikes from one another, as they remained in the same spot and continued to fight and push themselves to beat the other. Stands. Hiyashi, Hinata and Hanabi were each in shock seeing the move Neji did. The kaiten was a Hyuga clan technique reserved for main house members. As such, they knew no one would teach it to Neji, which meant he learned it on his own. Such talent on the branch house, yet those fools on the council still think that he's below them, thought Hiyashi with a scowl. Arena. Naruto and Neji continued on with their blow-for-blow strikes, while simultaneously blocking the other with great precision. Naruto pushed another attempted palm strike and countered with a punch to Neji's face, which was blocked. Neji then responded with two fingers aimed at Naruto's pressure point in his neck before that was knocked away. Naruto then responded with a knee to Neji's gut, which hit, but Neji didn't let that stop him, as he rolled to the side and sent another palm strike at Naruto's head, intent to get the kill. Naruto's eyes widened slightly before he bent his back to the point that would allow the strike to miss. Naruto then placed both hands on the ground and balanced his body, before he began to spin himself on top of his hands and sending multiple kicks at the Hyuga prodigy before pushing himself back up to his feet and crossed his arms. Well, Neji, I have to say you are indeed providing a challenge, but you still are not going to win, he said with Neji scoffing. And just what would make you believe that? You a loser, a first-year dead last genin from this year's new genin. How could you expect to defy what has already been determined? He said, standing up tall, but Naruto's serious look returned. Because like I said, I'm going to beat you and avenge something I could have stopped. You're nothing but a smug coward that blames his problems on others and lives in the past, he said with Neji scoffing as well. And what exactly do you know? You don't know what I've gone through, he said before pulling down his headband and revealing his caged bird seal. He then went into an explanation about how the Hyuga clan was fated to be separated into two houses, Hinata's kidnapping and his father's death. When he finished his rant, he only saw Naruto's bored look once more protruding his face. And I'm supposed to care when? Naruto asked with Neji gasping in surprise. You complain about living in a clan home with family and people that at least care about you, being trained under their arts, and the one person you're supposed to serve decides to be easy on you. You just helped prove my earlier thought of you, a pathetic little daddy's boy. If you want sympathy from me, then give me something that I would actually care about, Naruto said in an uncaring tone, thus shocking the entire stadium as well as Neji. Neji's face turned into a scowl before he slid into a new stance. Within his mind's eye, he began to see the pattern of a yin-yang sign surround both himself and Naruto. He held his eyes closed before he opened his eyes and called out his next move that would further determine the outcome of this match. 8 divination strikes, 64 strikes, he called out before launching himself at the white-haired boy, prepared to take him out with his clan's best technique. 2 strikes, he called out, sending 2 quick strikes with his index and middle fingers, only for them to miss their target. 4 strikes, he called out again with the same outcome. 8 strikes, dodged again, 16 strikes. This time with more speed, but Naruto dodged it again with his speed increased as well. 32 strikes. Neji called with more speed, yet the boy continued to dodge the strikes with ease. 64 strikes, he yelled, going full speed with the final attack, but Naruto did the same and vanished from his position. When Neji finished the final strike, Naruto reappeared behind the boy with a smirk on his face. Still think I'm weak? Naruto said with the other boy just looking at him in disbelief. He was not the only one, as everyone in the stadium, including the Kages and the Hyuga clan members, were just staring at Naruto in complete, utter shock. Naruto has just made history, as a genin just defeated a technique that most Anbu-level ninja couldn't even beat, no matter how fast they were. Sarutobi narrowed his eyes, and saw Naruto taking in quick breaths through his nose, and knew that it took a lot of power from him. Hiyashi and Hinata were also shocked, as Naruto defeated a technique that made their clan famous, due to it being referred as the unbeatable technique. Apparently only one was able to prove that wrong. Neji himself could only stare in disbelief and ask the question on everyone's mind. How? He asked with Naruto smirking once more. It's quite simple. I used the same method of expanding my chakra around my body as a shield and used that to help me dodge properly when you sent your strikes at me. The only flaw in that method is that as you increased your speed, I had to do the same until I went even further past my limit. However, as taxing as it may be, it's worth using a second time, though I doubt it will be against a Hyuga, he said with Neji looking shocked before he continued. However, I managed to save as much energy in my body as I could to use this new move of mine, Blood Wave Strike, he called out as he saw Neji preparing to finish the fight. What greeted him was an explosion of red chakra surrounding the boy, before it spun around him and expanded outward, pushing Neji backwards till all he could do was lay on his back. Neji felt weak now, as the technique Naruto showed left him and he was now free to walk towards the fallen boy. How the hell can you still stand? There is no way someone like you, a dead last rookie, could come up with a method to defeat that attack, nor should you even hold the amount of skill to fight me toe for toe throughout the match without taking a shot from me. I was Rookie of the Year and the best among the genin. You should not be the one standing and me on the floor. This is not what your fate tells me, he said, finally speaking his mind on the matter at hand. Naruto, however, looked the boy in the eye as he spoke. You know what? You're absolutely right. On the day of my genin exam, I failed it for the 3rd time in a row and repeated my image of a failure among the strong. For years I tried to get stronger, trying to improve myself by myself. Everyone in the academy was at least twice as strong as me, and instead of helping me, they all laughed at me and assumed that I was just one giant joke. Then that very night my sensei chose to change my fate, as I was supposed to pity myself, while I watched the kids celebrate with their families on their accomplishment, he said with Neji listening intently and was unaware that everyone else in the stadium listening. My sensei chose to betray me and use me to gain power by making me believe that I could become a ninja through a secret exam by learning a jutsu that was too highly advanced for someone on genin level. He thought that it would be an easy steal for him since I'm too weak to learn such an advanced jutsu. And yet I did. I learned it. And beat him with it. It was after that day that I became what you see today. This brand new version of myself is something that took me 12 months to make from the 12 years I've remained weak. But you want to know why I failed so many times? He said before crossing his fingers and brought forth 4 clones of himself. Neji's eyes widened as he got what Naruto was implying. That's right, the clone jutsu. I didn't have enough control over my chakra to master it, and thanks to my so-called teachers not teaching me properly, I continued to fail, until I chose to do something about it, and as such I now stand as I am today. If you want to preach your faith bullshit, then preach it to someone that cares. However, unlike me Neji, you have a family that cares about you, and a cousin that was willing to go as far as to fight her cousin to prove you wrong. But I will give you this last warning. If you make one slip up, one mistake, one false step, that gives me the impression that you will hurt Hinata, then, you no longer have to worry about fate being wrong, because I'll be there to prove you right. Through your blood. He said with his eyes turning blood red to further emphasize his words. Naruto then got up from his position and placed on his Hiyori, then turned his sword back into its belt form before walking away. Let's go. Naruto said with his forgotten clones nodding and following the boy. Winner of the first match, Sparda Naruto, he said with the crowd erupting with cheers and people cursing due to them losing their bets and few cheering because they won. Stands. The rookies that didn't know Naruto completely were in absolute shock at what they just witnessed. Naruto just took on last year's Rookie of the Year and won with flying colors. The judges in the stands all agreed that with what they just witnessed, both genin were well above their level and deserved the promotion of Chunin, and if the Hokage thought on it, possibly to Junin. Kage Booth. Your genin of choice is quite impressive, Hokage-sama. To think that a boy referred to as the dead last in the academy would be able to defeat last year's Rookie of the Year, as well as dodge the boys' clan's most esteemed fighting technique, the Kazekage said while narrowing his eyes in the direction of Naruto. That boy is becoming too strong. If I want to succeed with my plans, I would have to take him out. Thought the Kazekage with Sarutobi nodding before looking at the arena floor. Oh, trust me, the boy is far from done. This was only his warm-up. Wait until he gets serious. Hiruzen said with high confidence in his voice regarding his surrogate grandson. Arena. The second match, Uchiha Sasuke vs. Sabaku no Kunkuro. Step up. He said knowing that due to Sasuke not being here, Kunkuro would win by forfeit. However, the puppet master had a different idea on the matter. Oh no, I can't reveal my puppet mechanism, even if I do win by forfeit. If I do, then they would know my fighting style and it will ruin the invasion. He thought before he spoke. Proctor, I forfeit my match to the Uchiha. Even though he's not here, let him move to the second round. Kunkuro said with everyone booing that decision. Naruto, however, narrowed his eyes at the boy. That was an easy fight, and yet he chose to give up. That fucker is up to something, he thought before the proctor called for the next match. Very well then, the winner of the second match by forfeit, Uchiha Sasuke. Now it's time for the third match, Sabaku no Gaara vs. Rock Lee, the proctor said with Gaara disappearing in an explosion of sand and reappeared in the arena. Lee then hopped over the railing and landed on the stadium floor. He quickly removed his glasses to show his Mashingan to the crazed Suna Genin. There's no way he could win against Gaara, no matter what type of moves he has. Kunkuro said with Naruto scoffing. I'm afraid that Lee hasn't showed you what exactly he can do in the prelims last month, Naruto said, with everyone looking at the arena below. The third fight, Sabaku no Gaara vs. Rock Lee, Hajime, he said with Lee stepping into his lotus fist stance while Gaara's cork popped off his gourd and flew at Lee like a bullet only to be snatched from air by the white-haired boy. Sand then fell from the ground and surrounded him in a small circle. Lee then dropped the cork and got into his stance again. He then threw a shuriken at the sand genin and unsurprised to see the sand protect him. Lee then ran towards Gaara before he jumped towards the crazed redhead with his leg extended, calling out, Leave Hurricane. The kick was blocked by the sand shield before Lee rebounded from the kick and then upped his speed at attack again. Lee then sent multiple punches and kicks, but were all blocked by the shield, while Gaara remained still with his arms crossed and watched his sand continue to protect him. When Lee hooked back again, sand suddenly shot at the boy, who jumped back and took out a kunai and sliced through the multiple shots of sand that flew his way. Lee then backflipped a few more times, before he flipped into a corkscrew spin before throwing 3 shurikens at Gaara, which was once more blocked by the sand shield. A hand then appeared from the sand that held the shuriken before it was revealed to be a sand clone. The clone then raised its right arm and sent a blast of sand at the boy, which Lee quickly dodged before he stood underneath a tree. He took a moment to catch his breath, and was very thankful that the little bit of knowledge he had on the boy when he killed that Oto shinobi back in the preliminary round. Guy worked well on teaching him how to fight the boy, and make sure that he didn't receive the same fate as that ninja he killed. It appears that his shield is under his control and follows his reaction time. This means that as he stands still, the shield will react to his command. It also appears that it reacts the moment he is in threat of either danger or being hurt, and then attacks those that threaten him. "Looks like I need to up the ante and use my true speed," he said as he brought up his leg and revealed weights that he wore around his legs. Lee then tossed the weights to the side, which gave off a loud thud once it hit the ground, and ran at the crazed red head. Lee then appeared before Gaara and threw a right fist towards his jaw, which made Gaara's eyes widen before the sand quickly shot up and protected him, though it wasn't enough to stop Lee's fist from hitting him hard enough to turn his head. Then, as quick as he appeared, he reappeared behind the boy and sent another punch that was once more blocked but barely, but it was enough to make Gaara continue to follow his movements. After a few more attacks, Gaara looked ready to counter Gaara's next attack, before Lee appeared above head in a cannonball flip, before lashing out one of his legs, and caught the top of the boy's head in a heel drop kick. "Fighter's booth. No way, he can move that fast just by removing a little weight?" Shikamaru said, with everyone else agreeing with that statement. "That's not the only thing Lee can do," Naruto said, catching the attention of the others. "Lee is a strong fighter, but for his ninjutsu or genjutsu, since only his bloodline can assist him in that, but his taijutsu is far above average. And when he fights without his weights, you'll be lucky to last more than 5 seconds before being knocked out or killed by him," Naruto said with pride in his voice when he spoke of his cousin. Deep in the stands, Kin cheered her man on with all the love in her heart coming out in the open. "Arena." Lee then smirked as he sent a right at Gaara, with the sand now forming in front of him, and blocked the punch. The sand then turned into an arm and twirled him around before tossing him away, but due to the boy's taijutsu training, he was able to land on his feet. Gaara then took that moment to reach up to his face, and felt around the area. He felt a stinging sensation, and looked to see blood, which shocked those from Suna that were watching this. But Lee wasn't as mesmerized as everyone, with Lee vanishing once more, and thanks to his sudden appearance was able to punch the boy. The punch was so strong that it literally knocked the boy off his feet and sent him skidding along the ground. But Lee frowned when he saw the gourd on the boy's back turn into sand and caught him, thus reducing the damage that would have been dealt. Gaara stood up and looked at his opponent, which showed Lee what hid beneath his sand armor. The expression of his insanity, the look of a complete psychopath on the verge of a killing spree, before it was covered by the sand rebuilding on him, and his expression returned to normal. Gaara then made some quick seals before calling out, "Sand release, desert wave jutsu," he said, with his sand exploding upwards like a giant tidal made of pure sand. Lee was still able to dodge the multiple attempts of taking him out, until he felt it was time to nip it in the bud. After dodging one more attack, he made his next move by untying his bandages on his arms, till they were at a good length before he stood in a new stance. Lee then took off in an even faster burst of speed and circled around Gaara, which began to bring up a cloud of dust while at the same time obscuring his view of what was going on next. Lee knew that he needed to build more than enough speed, as this was possible his best shot at weakening the boy's defense and dealing some damage before he used his weapon. The armor of sand was a problem, and it appeared to be able to rebuild itself upon any type of impact given to it, but his thoughts were broken when Gaara spoke. "Hurry up and come so I can end this," Gaara said with a monotone-like voice that he was known for. Suddenly Lee shot forward from the man-made cloud of dust and appeared under the red head before delivering a devastating rising kick to the boy's lower jaw. The force of the kick sent Gaara into the air before Lee reappeared behind Gaara's body and secured him in the bandages that were tied around his arms. The bandages then tied up around the sand shinobi like a mummy with only its torso secured, before Lee grabbed him and starting to spin at high speed while falling towards the ground head first. Giggity. "Primary Lotus." The cry came from Lee as they neared the ground, with Lee driving his opponent's head into the ground, while he released the other boy and landed on his feet, but his legs gave out, and he fell on his ass. The force of the technique caused a massive crater to form on the ground, with smoke leaving the area that Gaara's body was supposedly laying, while he took some time to catch his breath. That move still took a lot out of him, but it would be amazing if Gaara was able to get back up from that. The smoke then cleared to reveal Gaara's body, which lied battered and bloody in the spot Lee drove his head. That was when he saw the body begin to cave in on itself before it turned into sand. Malevolent chuckling was heard, as Lee turned to see Gaara's deranged smile on his face as he came from a pool of sand. Gaara then released another wave of sand, and while he tried to dodge the way he normally would, it was a challenge in itself. In the stands several people winced as Lee was slammed into yet another wall. For the past several minutes, they had watched as Gaara used his sand to beat Lee senseless, obviously toying with him. Those shinobi, who had heard of the lotus, knew that Lee was as good as done for, as the lotus was a kinjutsu for the fact that it did damage to the user as well as the victim. With the extra kicks he'd given Gaara, they knew his body must hurt like hell and feel like lead. Sakura, however, had tears in her eyes as she looked on the scene. She could tell Lee was done for, so she knew that the Jonin could tell, yet no one was stopping the match. Turning towards Guy, she found him standing, and oddly enough he was smiling. Looking away, she turned her sight back to the match just in time to see Lee disappear, avoiding another stream of sand. Lee Kun Hao, thought the girl, not even noticing that she'd added the suffix to his name. Kin, however, continued to pray for her man to come through this and win. That kid must be a glutton for punishment. I mean, who smiles while they're getting thrashed? Said Kankuro. No, that's not it, said Naruto, catching his attention. The tables have turned once again. Whatever happens, this will decide it, for the lotus in the hidden leaf blooms twice. White-haired boy. Arena. Lee continued to dodge the crazed ninja's attacks with as much speed as he could muster before he began to get the strength in his legs back. To most it meant that he was getting his power back, but to those that truly knew him and his abilities, then they would know what was coming next. Lee dodged another attack from Gaara, before he stood tall while crossing his arms into an X position, while his hands were pointed outward, not inward. You're finished here. Nothing you try will stop me from feeding you to the sand, he said with Lee smirking, while his Mashingjan spun. Oh, trust me when I say this, it will end here with this next move, he said with a circle of chakra forming around his feet, and shot upward like a barrier. Chakra began to build up as he called out, Life Gate, release. The massive surge of chakra began to turn the boy's skin red, but he did not move as he continued to build more power and called out, Wound Gate, release. The surge from the chakra that released from his body made the boy move into a hunched position. Then veins of his blood began to show along his body, and from his nose blood began to drip out. His hair began to stand up with his eyes turning full red with black mist slowly escaping it. Then, as fast as the power surge came, Lee suddenly took off with such force that the ground beneath his feet exploded. If you so much as blinked, within a second of the time span, you would miss Lee's amazing dash from the stadium wall to the center of the arena in a half of a second, and delivered yet another rising kick, but this one held far more force in it than before, and made Gaara ascend to the sky. As Gaara floated in the air, Lee suddenly appeared in front of him, and once more delivered a punch that sent the boy flying before his sand could even protect him. While he was still reeling from the hit that Lee sent, and then appeared behind him, sending him forward once more with another attack. Soon Gaara's sight began to fail him as he saw nothing but blurs appear around him, as Lee began to knock the boy around the air like a pinball and rip through the boy's sand armor with ease. With a few more strikes, Lee appeared before the boy once more with his arm cocked behind his back and looked ready to deliver a punch that could only rival that of a god or a demon, while simultaneously ignoring the pain of his muscles snapping from the fatigue of the gates. This is it. I'm going to end it all with this. Limit Gate, release, he said with his body glowing blue and chakra exploding around his right arm. I can't protect myself from his attacks. Is this boy even moving at human movements? He thought before the air in his lungs left him as Lee's fist was buried in Gaara's gut and sent him down to the ground at high speed. Too bad for him, Lee had one more move to seal the deal. As Gaara flew down to the ground, his momentum was stopped abruptly and caused small damage to his neck from the whiplash. He then looked up to see Lee holding the bandage attached to his sash. With a single tug on his end of the bandage, it pulled Gaara back up to his opponent, right back to his area in which he could deliver his final move. He then sent a palm strike and kicked to the boy's gut and chest in a dual attack. Hidden Lotus was the cry of Lee's voice. With that single attack, Gaara was launched to the ground like a missile. At the same time, Lee felt his right arm seized in overwhelming pain along with his leg, but his leg didn't hold much damage as his arm. The pain was so strong that it made him close his eyes tightly and grit his teeth through the pain and trying to keep himself from crying out. Both boys landed on the ground hard, with Lee returning to his original form immediately. But Gaara would be able to pull a fast one himself, as his gourd busted open and turned into sand so that he could catch himself. The sand acted as a cushion to lessen the force of the fall he would have taken from such a high velocity. Lee then looked at the sand boy with a tired look on his face. No, I had him. He thought before he saw Gaara raise his arm at Lee's location with the sand latching itself on Lee's right arm. Gaara then closed his fist and made the sand constrict around the boy's arm, which then made him scream out in pain before he got down on one knee. Gaara snarled as he sent his arm out to swallow the boy in the sand. only for Naruto to blow it apart with his blood wave technique. Naruto then raised his right hand and called out Serenity, which sent his force blast at Gaara, which was blocked by his sand shield. Proctor, he can't continue the way he is now with his arm being shattered. End the match, Naruto said with the Proctor nodding and declaring it so. Naruto then made 2 shadow clones to carry the boy back to the fighter's box. His own devil powers will heal him up without the need of the infirmary. He then looked towards Gaara with a dark look on his face while Gaara got up from the ground. Why did you save him? I could have proven my existence, he said with Naruto slowly leaking killing intent before he glared into Gaara's eyes. Because he's my family, my only family, and I cannot let you get away with that, he said with his eyes flashing gold and his form changing for a quick second. Gaara stayed silent and merely stood up and gathered the sand into his gourd. Once it was all in, he walked away from the arena with the Proctor declaring him the winner. After 15 minutes of waiting, the ground was now fixed by a large amount of the earth users in the village. Later on in the arena, Temari then whipped her fan out and floated down to the ground, but not before winking at Naruto, which caused Tenten to protect her man. Temari then floated down to the ground with a large mass of wind helping her descent down softly. When her feet touched the ground, a small gust of wind blew around her and she then placed her hand on her hip. No way in hell I'm going to fight a girl. I guess I might as well forfeit and, he thought before he felt a hand push him over the railing. The shadow user then landed on his back and saw the smirking face of Naruto, who currently held up the peace sign towards the man. Shikamaru felt the extreme need to curse at the boy that would place him in a fight he held no desire to compete in. After a few more minutes of waiting, the crowd grew impatient and restless, with the results being things thrown at the boy. Kid, just get up from the ground. How long are you going to just lay there? The Proctor asked with Shikamaru sighing. Everyone wants to see that stupid Uchiha fight anyway. They're probably all mad that they have not seen their poster boy partake in the main event, while the rest of us are just side matches for them to watch. Since no one really cares about this fight, anyway, I guess I don't even have a reason to do this. Besides, I would much really watch the clouds, he thought before Temari spoke. So what, you're just going to lay there and forfeit? Temari asked with Shikamaru looking at her before the girl found a smirk to her face. Fine then, I guess I'll have to come to you. Too bad it's not that white-haired kid, I'm sure he's good with all kinds of weapons, she said with the females, all blushing from that comment since they knew she was implying to sex. After ignoring the Proctor's words about not starting the match yet, Temari rushed towards the down boy before bringing her closed fan down like a hammer. When the hammer slammed on the ground, it created a large cloud of smoke until it cleared to show that Shikamaru had somehow stuck two kunais to the wall behind him and was using them as arm holders. You know, the last thing I want to do is fight a girl because to me that's unmanly. Plus the fact that I could care less if I become a chunin or not, but I refuse to lose to a girl, so I guess I have no choice but to fight. After all, a guy shouldn't lose to a girl in front of a crowd, he said. Temari's eyebrow twitched before she opened her fan and sent a blast of wind at the Nara clan air, but soon came to find out that she hit nothing but thin air. He's good at running, she thought before looking at Naruto and found another smirk come to her face. Why not have some fun flirting with a cute boy before she fought? Hey you, the cutie with the tattoos, she said, catching Naruto's attention. How's about we make a bet, she said with Naruto looking down. I'm listening, he said with her smirking. If I win in my fight with your friend, you gotta take me out on a date, she said with Naruto looking far off on it before he asked. What would I get if Shikamaru wins? He asked with her responding as if it's the most simplest thing in the world. My body, she said, making everyone listening gape at that. If he wins, you can get me for a night, and trust me when I tell you that I'm far better than that panda girl beside you, she said with Tenten looking pissed at that. Deal, Naruto said with Tenten looking at Naruto in disbelief. But Naruto-kun, why would you agree to stakes like that willingly? She asked when she was really just shocked that that girl would even suggest that kind of thing with her man. Well, not technically her man, but it was still like that. Because Shikamaru's not going to be the victor, trust me, he said with Tenten nodding. 4 hours later the match ended with Temari being declared the victor like Naruto said. Temari was excited at the fact that she now had a date with the boy, when in truth, it was only due to the boy's lack of chakra that forced him to forfeit. In the complete truth, Shikamaru had the match won, due to his dismay of creating and establishing well-planned out strategies, while Temari did the same by making strategies as well. Therefore, in certain terms this turned out to be a battle of the minds. While many were upset by the Nara boy's forfeit, the judges saw it in a different way could not help but be impressed by the boy's strategic mind. Then came the next match between Tenten and Shino, which also ended in a forfeit from Shino, seeing as how he didn't want to fight a girl due to his bug technique sapping a girl's chakra, and he couldn't live with that. It was with that forfeit that the second round was now set, with the first match now being between Naruto and Sasuke. Naruto then walked down to the arena with his belt on his shoulder. When he made his appearance, the crowd erupted with cheers, as Naruto now stood beside the proctor. Since Uchiha Sasuke has yet to arrive, he shall be given 5 more minutes to arrive. Should he not arrive within that time limit, we will no longer award him time and move on to the next match, called Genma, with his voice slicing through the arena like the sharpest knife on the table. Naruto had a different feeling on this matter, as that closet homo was being given favoritism again due to him being an Uchiha. He knew that had it been anyone beside the Uchiha, they would have been disqualified without a moment's notice. Yet because of his last name, he was once more being given a leniency on the rules, and it now pissed him off. As that thought went through his head, he ran a single hand through his hair and caused the top to spike up. Naruto's eyes then glowed his QB reds as he held up his belt. The belt then exploded into black smoke before turning into the no Daichi length blade. Naruto's eyes then turned as cold as ice, with his chakra steadily increasing by the second. The boy's grip on his sword tightened as he placed the blade on his shoulders and awaited his so-called teammate. Not a second after he placed the sword on his shoulder did his eyes revert to the left. Just after that did a whirlwind of leaves appeared in the center of the arena floor, before it cleared to show the forms of Hatake Kakashi and a now dressed in black-clad Uchiha Sasuke. Everyone gasped at the sudden appearance of the two, but then they cheered since they now got to have their match. "Sorry we're late, did Sasuke get disqualified?" he asked with his eye smile that caused Genma to sigh. "No, Kakashi Hokage-sama has decided to allow him to fight in the exam. However, that's not without punishment, for he has now lost his chances of advancing in rank, no matter how well he does in the tournament," he said with Kakashi's single eye to widen. He never would have thought that being late would actually hold consequences, since he does it all the time. He then sighed before he asked a question. "Okay then, so is he facing that puppet user now?" he said with Genma shaking his head. "No, we are currently in the second round. We were all shocked when his opponent forfeited his match to the Uchiha even though he was not even there," he said with Kakashi scratching his head in confusion. "Then who's his opponent?" he asked before hearing a cold voice speak. "His opponent is me," Naruto said with Kyuubi's chakra exploding from him like wildfire and swirled around him like a tornado. Kakashi's single eye widened when he saw the look in the boy's eyes, the look of death at a single glance, a look that he had only seen on one person long ago. He then cast an eye to Sasuke, who didn't seem to be fazed by Naruto's power, but upon closer inspection he saw the boy's hands were shaking. After sparing one quick worried glance at his student, he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Seeing that the masked man was gone, Genma cleared his throat, causing Naruto to cease his chakra tsunami and gain both boys' attention. The first match of the semi-finals, Sparda Naruto vs Uchiha Sasuke, Hajime. And guys, this is the end. I hope you guys enjoyed it well. Until next time, peace.